everybody, and welcome to episode number 15 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. Let's get to our content for the week. I don't think anyone saw this coming. On Tuesday, the Milwaukee Bucks fired head coach Adrian Griffin after just 43 games. Wow. At the time of his firing, the Bucks were 30-13, second in the East, and were tied with Minnesota for the second best record in the league. Joe Prunty took over as the interim for 3 games before Doc Rivers took over the vacancy. Yes, Doc Rivers. According to NBA insider Shams Charania, Rivers was an informal consultant to Griffin this season. Remember, after Doc Rivers was released from the 76ers, he's been in the broadcast booth with Mike Breen and Doris Burke. Probably the biggest reason for Griffin receiving his pink slip was because Milwaukee's defense at the time was 6th worst in the NBA. Yes, 6th worst. Teams like the Trailblazers and Hornets were giving up fewer points per game than Milwaukee. Firing a coach after one season is one thing. Firing a coach midway through his first season is another. We'll have to see if the Rivers, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Damian Lillard pairing pays off in the coming months. Also on Thursday, the Washington Wizards decided they've had enough of their head coach as well. Wes Unseld Jr. is now transitioning into the front office. So he's not leaving, but he's also not the coach anymore. Kind of like what Dwayne Casey did with the Pistons last season. Top assistant coach Brian Keefe will be the interim head coach until the offseason. In the 2.5 seasons under Unseld, Washington went 77-130. That is a winning percentage of 37.2. The last 2 seasons were 35-47 each, and the Wizards were 7-36 at the time of Unseld's dismissal. Unlike the Adrian Griffin firing in Milwaukee, this firing doesn't come as big of a shock. Doing it mid-season is interesting, but the Wizards need some help badly. Their first game under Keefe was on Thursday, which was a home loss against the Utah Jazz. This episode is entitled Ascension. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment? Let's go to our highlight, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Can you think of a team that is low-key a solid playoff contender, but no one wants to admit it? I'm thinking of the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs are 27-16 and 5th in the East. The reason Cleveland isn't talked about more is because they're in the same conference as the Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers. The star of the show is former Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell is averaging 27.7 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and almost 2 steals per night. Young guys like Isaac Okoro and Jarrett Allen make up some of their starting 5, and they consistently make good plays. Karis LeVert can give you over 15 points off the bench. Cleveland went into last offseason and signed shooters Max Strus away from the Heat and George Niang from the 76ers. J.B. Bickerstaff is in his 4th season as the Cavs head coach. That is his 4th full season. He took over late in the 2019-20 season. Overall, Cleveland has a young core to contend in the future. But I'm not sure if they have enough to compete right now. They lost to the Knicks in the first round last season in a gentleman's sweep, which is 5 games. If they make noise this year, though, I'm here for it. Their next game is tonight, Monday, January 29th at 7 o'clock. They will host the LA Clippers. Let's go to our lowlight, the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors are a prime example of putting all of your eggs in one basket for one championship and then dipping immediately after. The Raptors are 16-30, 12th in the East, and they're on a 5-game losing streak. As we've mentioned in the last few episodes, Toronto made moves recently to dismantle their core. Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby are gone. RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Scotty Barnes are their young future. Here's the bad thing, though. The New York Knicks are 12-2 since trading for Anunoby. Siakam is primed to do well alongside Tyrese Halliburton, but Barnes and Barrett should do fine. Barnes is averaging 20.3 points, 8 rebounds, a little over 5.5 assists, and some nice defensive numbers. Barrett is putting up a career-best 21 points a night since joining his new team. Toronto's head coach is former Serbian youth head coach and Thunder, Suns, and Grizzlies assistant coach Darko Rajakovic. Rajakovic, in his first season as an NBA head coach, took over for Nick Nurse, who is now coaching the 76ers. Despite the fact that there's still time to grab a play-in tournament berth, it may take a few years before the Raptors are ready to compete for another title. Toronto's next game is on Tuesday, January 30th at 8 p.m. They will be on the road to take on the Chicago Bulls. Let's go to our random stat. On Thursday, we learned the NBA All-Star starters for the upcoming All-Star game. The Indiana Pacers are hosting the big game this season on Sunday, February 18th at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The West starting five is Dallas's Luka Doncic, Oklahoma City's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Denver's Nikola Jokic, Phoenix's Kevin Durant, and LA Lakers' LeBron James, who is also the captain. For the East, we have Philadelphia's Joel Embiid, Indiana's own Tyrese Halliburton, Milwaukee's Damian Lillard, Boston's Jason Tatum, and Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is also the captain. It seems like every year, James and Antetokounmpo are the captains, so that's not really a surprise. But as we discussed earlier in the season, the All-Star game is going back to the East versus West format. There's not going to be a player draft like in recent years. Even with the format changing, the charity aspect will not. The team with the most points at the end of each quarter will win a cash prize that will go to the charity of their choice. While it was cool to see players from opposite conferences playing on the same team, the traditional East versus West game is nothing to sneeze at. The 7 All-Star reserve selections for each conference picked by the head coaches will be 2 guards, 3 front court players, and 2 additional players. The reserves will be announced this Thursday, February 1st at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Finally, let's go to our Game of the Week. For this week's Game of the Week, let's go with the Milwaukee Bucks at Portland Trail Blazers. This game is on Wednesday, January 31st at 10 p.m. And you may be asking, why in the world are you picking the Trail Blazers, Larry? We are highlighting this game for mainly one purpose: Damian Lillard's return to Rip City. The Bucks and Blazers already played on November 26th in Milwaukee as the Bucks won 108-102. Milwaukee is looking for the sweep. Lillard gave Portland 11 years of service, but the Blazers were never true contenders during his time there. Getting traded to Milwaukee gives him a chance to get his first championship. This game will be a battle of Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton. For the coaches, it'll be one of the first games of the Doc Rivers era in Milwaukee versus Chauncey Billups. Milwaukee has won 81 matchups against Portland all-time in 134 attempts, including the last 3 consecutively. I'll take the Bucks 121-110. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both Twitter and Instagram. My personal Twitter is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They are also in the description on SoundCloud. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.